you're going to the Guineas as a 104 behind Desert Miracle. What kind of work did you do for her? Like, is she sort of like a hard worker at home, or does she show you a lot at home?
She shows good work. She's a very honest worker. She always does what the jockeys ask her to do. So every time we faced her with something a little bit stiffer, like I said, stiffer tasks, she met them, she stepped up. So going into the 1400, we would just wanted to see if she's in the class of where those horses are, because obviously before then we were just running in handicaps and normal races. We were slightly concerned that bringing her back from a mile into a 14 will have a little bit flat-footed in the race. Plus, that was I think it was still the short run in, slightly wide draw. So we still had visions of going into the Guineas after that, but I just first wanted to see if she's in the class of those kind of fillies. So when she ran second, we were delighted, because I felt we still had a lot of horse to work with. We definitely didn't. We didn't have her close to a top in the 14, and I knew we can press a bit harder, and there's still a lot to come. So between the 14 and the Guineas, she just thrived. She really did well. She put up phenomenal work, really good gallops, and I felt we had probably two horses to beat going into the Guineas, but I knew our filly was at her best.
And then she goes and she wins the Guineas, and she wins it quite convincingly, to be honest. The margin says 0.2 a length, but really she was in command. So let's talk about that captain's ransom sort of battle.
Have we not suffered enough?
So you do feel that she should be a dual Group 1 winner?
Yes, although I have huge respect for Captain's Ransom. I think she's a phenomenal filly, and we need those fillies in running for us. So it's actually an honour to compete against those fillies. Like, there's the Miracle, although things haven't really mapped out the way they thought would for Desert Miracle. I love competing against those horses, especially if you've got something to semi-match them. There's excuses in both. The last two times we got beat, but there's excuses in every race. So I'm trying to look forward to and not look back. We were very disheartened by the run on Med Day, but again, I thought what Captain Ransom did was phenomenal. But it's not often a jockey looks the wrong direction, looking at horses that's not there, and all of a sudden something catches you on your outside. And if you look at the rerun, I don't think Grant pulled his stick. But that's, we've not suffered enough. We can look forward, not backwards.
Looking forward then, when you chart and you make the decision not to go to Durban, that's a decision that you're doing because you feel like having a better filly in Cape Town is more important, or her accolades are enough to grant you that?
The reason being is I felt she had a hard Cape season, and we've discussed this with Mrs. Plattner even almost before the Mallorca run. After the Guineas, I only wanted to give her one more run before we think about moving to Natal. I was going to bypass the Paddock Stakes because I was wary about the distance. I wasn't sure if the 1800 would be the right race for her. But she ran the Guineas and took the run so well that we thought she had improved from the Guineas, and she was almost getting dangerously fresh. For us to keep her on the boil like that for 6 weeks going into Mallorca would have been difficult, to the point where she might have actually hurt herself or hurt someone because she was just doing cartwheels and fly leaping, everything. So Grant convinced me to go for the Paddock Stakes, even though I said I was wary about the distance. She seemed to stay the distance pretty well for a 3-year-old filly against good older fillies. And then the way she ran there, I thought, okay, well, now we'll have to go for the Mallorca, even though I didn't really want to run in 2 races. It nearly paid off. But I was concerned that if we go to Durban now, she might be very competitive in the Garden Province, might find it quite easy to win the Guineas there, the KZN Guineas. but they don't. The KZN Guineas won't carry the same weight as what next year's races hopefully will do. And I'm also wary that some of the best Vercingetorixes that have performed well over 2, 3, they kind of disappear later on in their careers. So I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing, but it's a decision that we've made. I mean, even Captain Ransom bombed out in Natal last year.
Then let's look at Master Redoute. So we now go PE, and then he goes to prepares in Durban.
Yep.
To map him out, he goes Guineas route, and you say he's probably better over 1800. So Daily News, ultimate target.
I would hope the Daily News is on the cards. I'm putting a line through his last run. Today will be an important race for him. It's in theory quite an easy race for him, but he needs to get the job done today for us to even consider going Daily News route. What is kind of tricky is I do think he's above average horse, but he doesn't show us anything in work. So he's one of those you almost have to hope he's well. You hope everything is spot on, because he doesn't give it away in his work. His gallop last week was very good. For a long time we've considered putting blinkers on him, and because it's a small field and long straight at Fairview, it's actually a perfect time to put blinkers on him. So I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we expect him to win.
Well, we'll make sure it airs afterwards. I'm going to switch gears and go back to winning your first Group 1 with Plattner Racing. It's obviously been, how many years have you been working here? Do you want to recount?
Well, working for Ms. Plattner is more than 20. But the trainer part, I'm not sure, 5, going on 6.
So 6 years and you win your first Group 1. What's the celebration like?
Not huge, to be honest. It was more just a relief, just get it done. So it feels like we can take the next step easier now, as opposed to pushing hard to get that Group 1 done. So it's not something I want to make too big a fuss about, because I should have done it a long time ago. So I'm lucky to still be here. Yeah.
So you're grateful for the journey, I guess, in that sense. When I first talked to Grant here, maybe beginning of the season, he'd come back from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Started, he's a fresh mind almost. He felt like he had gone for a holiday and that left him with experience on his back. And you had a marvelous partnership, in terms of what does that work like? What is that relationship like on a day-to-day basis?
Challenging, simply because Grant is an enigma in his own right, but he is a phenomenal jockey. So I think this is our second go as a partnership together. First time around, it didn't go well. More of a communication issue than anything else. I rate Grant really highly, and we're still learning about each other. But this time around, I think we went into it with clear heads and decided to trust each other. So I make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes. Grant certainly makes mistakes, but we look forward. We can't. No point in just coming in the morning after days racing and being angry at each other. There's races next week again, so you got to keep forward. So it's a privilege to work with Grant. Like I say, he's one of the best jockeys in this country. So for us to have him here on call is phenomenal.
Let's talk about sort of the relationship with the farm, breeding, sales. It's quite an interesting one that you have, because you're going to the sales to buy for one client.
Yes.
That client also breeds, and you sort of have a very clear view of what you're breeding, what's coming in. What's your strategy going into a sale?
Our strategy is normally in flux, so it changes depending on what's in front of us. But we try and sit down a couple of months before the sales, actually. And then we look at what we've got at our disposal at La Plaisance in George. How many foals have we got? Recently, we've started. I've asked the stat manager Mornay, who does a fantastic job there, to give me an honest opinion of what he thinks the colts and the fillies, and score them. So I say, okay, then we've got this many fillies, this many colts, and we've sort of worked out what we need to maintain the status quo and to actually grow a little bit. Ms. Plattner is very keen on limiting her numbers, so she doesn't want to get too big, not too many horses. So when we go to sales, it's normally to try and fill in the gap of what the farm doesn't breed. So let's say this year coming, we've got 10 lovely fillies on the farm. So we won't go to sales looking for 3 fillies. We might, if we do like a filly, it'll be a filly with pedigree that'll have residual value that come back to the farm and breed eventually. But we'll have a bit of a mandate saying, okay, we're short on colts, we need colts. And this is the kind of colts we need. There's no point in we having 8 stayers on the farm and we go and buy 3 more stayers. We need to try and be competitive throughout the spectrum, fillies and colts over different distances. It's not easy. I'll give you an example on Chansonette. We bought her thinking she's a sprinter. First and Getrix out of a good sprinting mare. It was a Karori mare actually. But she's not a sprinter obviously, so it doesn't always work out that way. But that is the idea. You need to have some kind of a plan. It's phenomenal. I think I want to thank her publicly. I think it's a great initiative and the grooms really appreciate it. It also just shows the value of having feature race horses. It puts, especially in a time where listed races and even graded races were run at a reduced stake, it seemed to almost diminish the value of those listed races because the stake money is not great. The name of the race is still there, even though there's not a stake value. But the grooms are getting compensated or incentivized for still running a horse in a feature race. And it doesn't create jealousy, it creates, I also want a horse to run in the feature race. And I often hear down, why don't you nominate my horse for that race? Nominate for that race. Everybody's involved in it. And we haven't won enough of those checks for the grooms, but we're certainly trying. I thought some of the race days were phenomenal, especially the Met this year. I thoroughly enjoyed the Met. I thought the new sponsor did a really good job. And even though it was a reduced crowd, I felt personally that everybody that was there were vested in racing. And that's lovely. I mean, everybody watched the racing and they enjoyed the racing as opposed to just some boom box about 100 meters away blaring music all day and no one really cares what's happening there. Whereas the people that came to races, because the numbers are forced to be reduced, you're there for a reason. And I really enjoyed that.
Looking forward, any kind of cool youngsters that excite you?
Always. But they're cool youngsters, but they're only good youngsters once they cross the winning line. So yes, no, that's an old adage. I mean, that's why we get up in the morning, is those unraced horses, and you think, oh, you can still this will win something. Most of the youngsters that we have here, I either train their mothers or that kind of thing. So because we're keeping everything in the family, and it's always interesting for us to look into the gene pool and see what it actually can produce and see if we did a good job 15 years ago. And Mrs. Plattner is really vested in the breeding game, so that makes me get up in the morning. CALLUM is an important part of the team, I've said many times, but we have a great team. CALLUM is not isolated. I mean, Byron and Durban and Alfred here and Francois, Jason Smitsdorf, everybody is part of the team. Everybody knows their role really well. But yeah, CALLUM he's an up-and-coming star in the game. He's got a long future ahead of him. At the moment, he does challenge me in good ways, which I enjoy. But with all of the rest of the team, they are dedicated on what they want to do, and they want results. And that's I'm not quite a slave driver I should be. I'm more of a captain that steers us in the right direction and allow the people that must do their job to do their job. I can't be the wing. I'm more built like a hooker. So someone needs to do my job and someone needs to do his job, and that's where they all do their part. It's a great rehabilitation for post-race. So the horse that struggles a bit stiffness-wise, being a bit jarred up, swim them really gets them through the race a lot quicker. It's especially useful for horses that seems to have quite a lot of muscle issues, sore backs, that kind of thing. I'm still unsure if you can really get a horse fit by swimming them a lot, but it's a great variation if you want to get some weight off their legs and do something different with them. We still try and go to the beach as often as we can, even if it's just for afternoon walk or a lot depends on the tides. We watch tides quite carefully. If it's low tide, we're inclined to go to the beach quite happily.